It's funny. I didn't actually start out in leadership. I mean, I found some roles I thought kind of like, hey, that sounds interesting. So I put my name in the hat through the APTA Engage page and said that sounds like an interesting opportunity for a PTA. I don't know anything about it, but let me check it out. And next thing you know, I'm signed up to a PTA council rep for the Academy of Orthopedics. And then before that, I've got the steering committee that I currently serve on, and then all of a sudden I'm now a APTA leadership scholar. So I've got a couple leadership opportunities within the organization in addition to being a clinician.
Welcome back to Orthostatic, here with the Academy of Orthopedic Physical Therapy. I am Jimmy McKay, joined by Albert Wong. Albert, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Very excited. Albert, now what's your superhero backstory? What's your background? How would you introduce yourself to a colleague at CSM, just so people get a sense?
Yeah, so I'm a physical therapist assistant. I work for a large base hospital system here in Central Florida. Practice outpatient orthopedics. I've been practicing for about 6 years, actually 8 years now. Now that I think about it, time flies when you're having fun, So I just love it. I just love the patients I interact with on a daily basis. Just seeing different types of orthopedic conditions. Really, what got me into PT was just my dad had Parkinson's at the time when I decided to go back to school, and that and a couple of things. I really have a passion for sports. I was an athlete in college for a little bit. Did a little bit of tennis, cross country, not so much cross country, but more tennis and soccer. So I really got a knack for like what athletes have to deal with. Luckily, I didn't really have any nagging injuries myself. Right now, I currently run. I do triathlons on the side, so that's a lot of fun. So I'm not practicing PT. I'm out, doing runs, marathons, half marathons, and triathlons. So I get a chance to interact with some of my friends, and just hearing some of their injuries kind of makes me want to drive for more and helping people out in the practice I work in. Yeah.
You're part of an engagement group within the Academy of Orthopedic Physical Therapy. To talk about that just a little bit, just give people sort of a sense of what it is, who's in the group, and why it exists.
Yeah, absolutely. So the engagement group is an awesome opportunity for PTAs. The orthopedic section, I think a lot of times PTAs don't really know where to go. They don't really feel like they have a home, right? They just don't know. A lot of them kind of see, maybe for a lot of people, PTAs, maybe this is like a second career for them, and they just don't really have a home or a place to go to. So the orthopedic section came up with this idea of an engagement group to kind of we want to make sure that our PTAs have a home that they can come to and kind of talk about things, whether it's like talking a little bit about shop or maybe just some other things that are going on, or maybe there's a condition that they're treating that they're not sure of, and they can kind of bounce off some ideas. And what better way to do that than the orthopedic community to do that? So the orthopedic engagement group is just a way for like-minded individuals to come to a place to do that. And I think that's one of the benefits of being a AOPTA member for a PTA. There's not, right now, I don't know if PTAs are really aware of that. So hopefully, getting the word out through just different events or just different networking things can kind of help bring that PTA and say, hey, we have a home for you. If you're a PTA, if you have a passion for orthopedics and you're a AOPTA membership, then we have a home for you. And we want to. That's how it kind of got started. So we just want to do that. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk specifics. You mentioned bouncing ideas around, and that engagement group is really encouraging interaction, not only between PTAs with each other, but PTAs and physical therapists. How are some of the ways the engagement group is doing that? What are some of the things that members get to experience?
Yeah, so right now we're kind of getting the ball rolling. We're trying to get members to the. We're trying to let them know, hey, there's an engagement group for them, and we're trying to spread the word out to let them know, hey, this exists. Once we get a little bit more members into the engagement group, then we're going to have a little bit content, whether it's orthopedic related, and hopefully have some PTs, maybe invite a PT out over to do like a chat or whatever. Maybe just have like I don't know. There's a lot of endless possibilities where we see this, but at the end of the day, it's really just about engagement, trying to get that PTA connected with other PTAs and PTs to kind of help grow the profession and just increase engagement and increase awareness that, hey, there's a that there's a PTA PT team, and we can make this happen. It's just really all about engagement and trying to make that PTA more engaging in their profession and not just see PTA as a job, if you will.
What do you see as the most significant barrier that PTAs face from your point of view when trying to engage more deeply with, let's say, the orthopedic community? And then maybe how can they overcome these challenges?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think for me personally, when I came into the PTA realm and just trying to engage with PTs, I think one of my greatest challenges was just the awareness, not knowing where to find resources, or not knowing that there was even a home for PTAs in the orthopedic community. So just looking at the websites, talking to different peers, going to events like CSM, even at your local national chapter. It doesn't necessarily have to be the APTA CSM. Individual states have their own fall conferences or spring conferences. So I think just getting out there and networking with people, and just simple, it's just really as simple as just saying hi. Just going up to somebody that you may not have interacted with before. You may have seen them on a podcast or some type of literature, but just going up and just introducing yourself, I think goes a long way. Because I think at the end of the day, um, a lot of times when people are meeting someone for the first time, they're a little gun shy. They don't know that
Sure.
person, and they're a little bit like, I don't know them. So I think it's just a matter of just saying hello, and then just getting to know that person, and you never know what comes out of that. And then from there,
Sure.
you network and get to know other people, because maybe that person introduced you to someone else and say, hey, he's a PTA. Let me introduce you to someone, and then it gets that conversation going. So I think that's the biggest barrier, is just our PTAs don't know that there are resources out there for them. So I'm hoping the engagement community is an opportunity for PTAs to do that.
Okay. Love that.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about from the other side of the coin, right? We've got PTAs and PTs that you're trying to, number one, understand each other better. If it sounds like that's what you're trying to do, which is a great first step. What role do you think physical therapists play in fostering a more collaborative environment with PTAs?
Yeah, excellent question. So I think the thing that I feel PTs can do to help foster that environment is just there's this talk about inviting people to the table, and I'm not really big into cliches, but I think at the end of the day, just having that invite, because if you don't feel invited, then you don't really feel encouraged to go. So I think one of the things that can kind of help PTAs as far as what PTAs would probably like to see from the PTs, is maybe just an invite to say, it could be something as simple as, hey, I'm learning this new technique. Would you like me to show you that to you? Or would you like to learn more? And that can kind of spark some conversation. Or maybe at a conference, hey, we're going out to lunch. Do you want to join us? And then, just having that collaboration, and just being part of or feeling like that you're part of the team, and not just part of like a paraprofessional, if you will. I know that sometimes some of our team members or whatever, people in the profession kind of use that terminology or whatever. But I think at the end of the day, it's just really feeling invited, making sure that everybody's included. So I think that's really the big barrier, is just like, hey, that PTA wants to feel invited. They want to feel encouraged. They want to feel that there's opportunities to engage as part of the team. That, hey, I'm a PTA. I'm part of that PT-PTA team. We're in it to kind of help us together and help our patients at the end of the day. I think that's really
Sure.
what PTAs are really looking for, is just finding that home, if you will. Everybody wants to have their tribe, if you will. They want
Sure.
somewhere to go to. So I think at the end of the day, it's just really having that invitation to say, "Hey, you're welcome. I want you to come. I want to hear what's on your mind. I want to get to know you." So I think that's really key.
Okay.
Yeah.
After being invited and after being engaged, one of the steps that could be in a PTA's future is leadership. What advice would you give to PTAs who want to take on more leadership roles within their organizations or the broader physical therapy community?
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I was kind of in that row. I didn't, it's funny. I didn't actually start out in leadership. I mean, I found some roles I thought kind of like, hey, that sounds interesting. So I put my name in the hat through the APTA Engage page and said, that sounds like an interesting opportunity for a PTA. I don't know anything about it, but let me check it out. And next thing you know, I'm signed up to a PTA council rep for the Academy of Orthopedics. And then before that, I've got the steering committee that I currently serve on, and then all of a sudden I'm now a APTA leadership scholar. So I've got a couple leadership opportunities within the organization in addition to being a clinician. So I think that's an awesome opportunity. So I'm not just a clinician at the end of the day. I'm also a leader in the association. And I think that's really what it boils down to, is just finding what you have a passion for, and just finding out those opportunities and seeing if those are things that are interesting to you. And if you think that there's something that's interesting for you to you as a PTA, then maybe if nothing else, just put your name in the put your name down and just say, hey, I'm interested. I don't know too much about it, but I'd like to find out. And maybe that's an opportunity to kind of spark some leadership opportunities. Because I think for me, and somebody once told me that in their current leadership role, that leadership, they never found leadership, they never sought it out. It kind of found them. And it didn't really dawn on me what that meant until just recently, that, hey, I'm involved in I'm sitting here one day thinking about all the different things that I do. And I'm thinking about some of the opportunities I currently do and thinking, well, how much of that did I actually seek out, and how much of it did it kind of come to me because I was involved in something else? And I'm like, wow, that's really funny that's how, that I'm experiencing that. So I think that's really key.
Well said. In what ways do you think ongoing engagement between PTs and PTAs can actually transition and go over to the clinical setting and impact patient outcomes in specifically an orthopedic setting?
Yeah, that's awesome. So I have a colleague that I work with here at the hospital that I work at, and this past year, we as a team, he's a PT, I'm a PTA, and as a team, he and I came up with a poster project. So we looked at some clinical outcomes within our organization, specifically low back pain, and then what we did was we looked at the lower extremity functional scale, or one of the outcome scales, excuse me. So we looked at one of the outcome scales, and we had this clinical care process model. So we looked at the CPGs, the clinical practice guidelines for low back pain, and we said, hey, if we implement the CPG in our organization, what kind of outcomes would we see? Would we see an improvement in outcomes? And what we did was we ran with it. We went ahead and implemented the CPG, and we looked at pre and post data. And then as a result of all that effort, the two of us worked together and came up with a poster presentation, which subsequently got accepted to CSM, and it also got accepted in the here in Florida, the state of Florida, the fall conference. So here we are as a PT-PTA team working together on research that's not, a lot of times in PTAs, you don't see a lot of PTAs, at least from my experience, you don't see a lot of PTAs in research. But here's something that a PT-PTA team that you don't normally see in your clinical setting, that's out there doing it, making it happen. A PT, PTA working together and coming up with a poster presentation that shows like clinical outcomes. And I think that's great.
Last question I got for you. If someone's nodding along, if a physical therapist assistant is nodding along, what are some immediate steps that PTA can take to begin to become more involved in the orthopedic community that you're talking about, and maybe specifically the APTA's mission and vision? What would you suggest?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that, again, going back to my earlier point, just not knowing some of the resources. I think that PTA, it doesn't have to be as elaborate as going to a CSM, because that can be kind of costly sometimes, and resources are finite, right? So at the end of the day, some of the grassroots opportunities can still be very valuable. So maybe going to like for example, here in Florida, I host a monthly pub night where I encourage PTs and PTAs to come on out and whether talk a little shop or just kind of get to network. And so I host that once a month, and it's just an opportunity for you to get out of the clinic and kind of meet some people and talk about things that are going on in their world. And I think that's some opportunities there. That way they can feel engaged, and it doesn't feel like they're just going into a Monday through Friday job, and then that potentially could lead to burnout, which is not good for the profession. So I think opportunities like that. There's other opportunities, even at the local level. Some of the fall conferences, like I said, you don't necessarily need to go to a conference, or maybe just a virtual meet and greet. I know some of the chapters and sections and academies, they have these virtual opportunities where you can just do a virtual meet. Shoot, one of our physical therapists here in Central Florida, during Christmas time, they did like a virtual Christmas party where everybody kind of dressed up in their favorite sweater, had a favorite beverage of choice, and then that was an opportunity for engagement. So it doesn't have to be something like very elaborate, but again, at the end of the day, those are touch points, right? Where those are quick touch points where you engage with somebody, they engage with you, and then that's how connections are built, and hopefully friendships as a result of that, for the profession. And at the end of the day, it's really about our patients and just making sure we're doing the best things for our patients, and having the best outcomes for our patients, but at the same time, hopefully having a little fun along the way,
Yep.
and learning and growing as a leader and as a professional.
That sounds great. Sounds great. Albert, last thing we do on the show is called Words of Wisdom. What's something you want to leave with the audience with? What's a statement or an idea that you'd want to make sure they don't forget?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the most profound statements I like to leave the audience with is just be engaged. Just show up. At the end of the day, I think if you just show up and be engaged, that's half the battle, right? Um,
Yeah.
because you don't know what outcomes, what opportunities are going to arise from you just showing up. Because at that, when you show up to something and you have an opportunity to be engaging, then there may be some other opportunities that you didn't think about as a result of you showing up. There's many times where I've gone to different pub nights or different events where, shoot, had I not shown up, I wouldn't have known about that opportunity, or maybe that opportunity wouldn't have presented itself to me because I wasn't there. So I think being just showing up and being engaged in, I think can go a long way.
Yeah, well said. Albert Wong, PTA, and a member from the great state of Florida. Appreciate the insight, and thanks for all the hard work you're doing to help, sort of close this gap between PTAs and the rest of the profession.
Great. Thanks so much.